Welcome to the 209 Journey podcast. I'm your host, Luis Urbano, and in today's episode, I'm going to be talking to Lee Neves. He is the CEO and chief consultant of CrossCurrents LLC, which helps political candidates, organizations, and measures with their campaigns, both offline and online. We'll definitely be having a conversation about that. Also, he is a Hilmar native, so we'll be talking about his time there living in Hilmar. He went to UOP, so we'll be discussing his time at the University of Pacific. Also, he recently made the announcement of a professional soccer team being brought to the city of Stockton, which I'm super excited about, called SC Stockton, and it'll be playing in the USL W, which is the USL's women's league. So lots going on there, and he will be having a logo release on that in a couple of months. So super excited to hear more about how he got that started. Also, he did just recently get a coaching license, so I'll be asking him about what his plans are for coaching soccer in the future. But before I introduce Lee, I wanted to remind you all, if you are not following me on social media, please give me a follow here on the podcast. You can find it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at the 209 Journey. Also, I invite you to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to this episode, whether it be Spotify, Apple, Google, among many others. They all should have a button that allows you to either follow, subscribe, or get notifications. And so anytime I put a new episode up, you'll be able to get a notification on that. And if you could do me a huge favor and share this podcast with a friend, that would be really amazing. And you would really help me grow this show as I continue to record episodes. I know I've said in the past that I'm going to try and do one a week. I've gotten pretty busy over the last couple of months, but I'm working on it again, and I'm trying to get more episodes recorded. And I do have a couple of people that I've contacted, and I hope to be adding some of them onto my recording schedule here pretty soon. So again, you'll find out more details as I go. And if you know someone who'd be interested in being on the show, again, all they have to be is someone from the 209 or someone who moved here to the 209 and has a story to share with everyone. So feel free to send me a message on social media if you have someone who's interested, or if they'd like to send a message directly, then they can do so as well. So welcome to the 209 Journey, Lee Neves. How's it going?
Good, going good. How are you?
I'm doing good. We're really excited to talk about a lot of things. I know we were talking about it a couple of seconds ago, that you have a lot of interesting things to talk about. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear about all these things here. So let's go ahead and get started. I know you grew up in Hilmar, and I want to know a little bit more about how your family got there. I know you have a Portuguese background, and I'm always really curious to hear more about how families immigrated from one side to the other, and how you established your home in Hilmar.
Yeah, absolutely. So was born actually in Modesto, but raised in Hilmar. First generation, my parents came over here as adults. My mother came over with my grandfather and her side of the family. First, they had a sponsor. And then my dad was still in the Portuguese army at the time. And so when he was done with his tour of duty, my mother went back to the Azores and married my dad in a church in the, as my dad would like to put it, U Antique Vila de San Sebastião, as he would say. But they got married there, and actually had the good fortune and lucky to be able to go visit the church that they got married in 3 years ago, 2019. Went over there for their 50th wedding anniversary. So that was something very special. But then they came back over here right after they got married and had their honeymoon in the exciting island of San Miguel, which is also in the Azores, where, fun fact, my mother had pineapple for the very first time. And it's funny. So there was like two paths they could have taken when they came here to California. They could have gone to one side of her family that lived in Pismo Beach,
Oh.
or they could have gone to Hilmar. And as I often like to tease my parents, I'm like, really, guys, you got to make a right. Come on, guys, killing me. But no, I did grow up in Hilmar all the way up through high school. Good old Hilmar Senior High. I had a pretty good family life. I mean, my parents made sure we never wanted for anything. They instilled a pretty good work ethic in us. And at the same time, they weren't, some Portuguese parents are known for being super duper strict. And my parents weren't, but also I lived with the fear of God in me from them, because I know if I screwed up, I would get the back end of what my parents would call a cloth pow, or a wooden spoon. So it's kind of like, I like to stay in a little box. But no, my childhood with my family was good. Hilmar is Hilmar. I mean, what can you say about it? And I actually heard one of your past guests call it very cliquey, and it is. It's like probably one of the clickiest towns in America, would be my guess. And I generally had a good time in Hilmar. People knew me, they liked me, but I also knew that me and Hilmar was square peg round hole. In junior high, all my friends were like, "Oh yeah, Guns N' Roses," all these bands, and worrying about girls. And here I was watching Crossfire on CNN and reading Time magazine. I had a different mindset than most people in Hilmar did. So when it came time to vamoose from Hilmar, go to college, my parents really, really wanted me to go to Stanislaus State, which is a fine university, mind you, excellent university. But at the same time, I knew that would be me living in Hilmar at my parents for the next 4 years. As with most Portuguese families, you have this big family discussion. So, kind of see it, me, my parents, my brother, his wife, my sister, who's 6 years younger than me, my two aunts, my two uncles, everyone's over, and just everyone's talking to each other about what I need to do. And finally, my Uncle Tony, God bless his heart, just said, look, he needs to go to UOP or he's not going to have a girlfriend the entire 4 years of college. And the decision was made. Actually, my dream school, the one I wanted to apply to, was Boston College, but my parents put the kibosh on that. They're like, 17-year-old you in Boston College, that ain't going to happen. And God bless their hearts, they were 100% correct. I'd get eaten up and spit out alive, eaten alive and spit out within the first 2 weeks in Boston, probably. So I went to UOP and had a pretty good run there in college, and went to their law school, McGeorge School of Law, where I learned to survive. I mean, law school is very cutthroat. I mean, it's just super duper cutthroat, and everyone's trying to get the big summer clerkship at Will Cheatham and Howe or whatever, whatever big law firm they want to get a clerkship at. And I was simply like, hey, look, I just want to be a politician. Just leave me alone. That's all I'm here for. And people generally did. They're like, oh, Lee's harmless. We don't have to worry about him trying to snake one of our clerkships. But my student experience in undergrad at UOP was definitely, it was fun. UOP actually went to the NCAA men's basketball tournament my senior year. They went to the tournament, and that was fun. We all hopped in a car and drove to Salt Lake City to watch them lose in the first round, and then hopped in a car and drove right back. But it was definitely an experience. So, up to law school, and in law school, I was, it was a good 3 years after you make it past like the first semester. If you make it past the first semester of law school, and you're still breathing, then you're pretty good. But let's put it this way. I had an incoming class of 370 law school students, and 212 ended up graduating. Oh. So there was quite a bit of attrition, especially after that first semester, first year. I mean, they really just, and I'm lucky I got through, because I actually ended up getting mono at the very end of in finals during my spring semester. I mean, all I wanted to do was sleep. My dad actually had to drive me up to finals for all of my finals, literally drove me up. And they put me like in a corner of the class away from everyone. And I'm just like mainlining coffee, trying to stay awake because I have mono and I just want to do that the entire, fall asleep the entire final. So, but made it through, got my Juris Doctorate. And as all my other friends were studying for the bar exam, I was running a congressional campaign in San Luis Obispo County in Santa Barbara and having an adult beverage on the beach saying, "Ha suckers." So that's my journey from high school to college. And, I know I said Hilmar's very cliquey, and that I was definitely square peg round hole. But look, my entire family still lives in Hilmar. My parents still call Hilmar home. I lived in Hilmar for 10 years, mostly my 20s or later 20s. So, I mean, it's a very nice, close-knit community. And obviously it isn't for everyone. It wasn't for me. That's not saying it's bad or good. It's just Hilmar is Hilmar. I mean, they had a Trump tractor parade in 2020, and it actually made national news, and they were excited about it. Obviously, my politics would not make me excited about it. So it's, and I still got friends that live in Hilmar, and they love it there. And it's a very small town kind of, small town environment, small town living. And, for those who want that, that's great. I happen to like a little more excitement. So, that's why I don't live in Hilmar right now.
Yeah, and luckily, we still have some of those small towns in the area, and I grew up in a small town myself, so I know how it's kind of nice when you could, live in those small towns for a little bit and
and I learned a lot of really good traits that are helping me as an adult. I mean, most off, just being a good person, working hard, keeping your word, things like that. That you just really get instilled in you from living in a small town, and those are lessons that I'm glad I learned, and I will never ever forget. So it's by no means am I saying poo-poo small towns. It's living in a small town for me had its time and place. I'm glad I did. I love going back to visiting my parents and my family when I can, but it's the big city, as they say, kind of sort of big city.
I feel the same way. I mean, even though Modesto's not like a big city, but it's definitely much bigger than where I grew up in. But yeah, I get you on that as well. Well, I want to know a little bit more about UOP when you were there, because you got your BA in history and then you got your law degree as well. But what kind of motivated you to, pursue history, and then furthermore, say I want to be in the law field? I want to get more into that.
So, growing up, I basically was a nerd. I mean, I'm going to come out and say it. I probably belonged on one of those Revenge of the Nerd movies. I had the glasses and everything. I always just loved history. I really did. I mean, during summer break, little Hilmar Library would have a thing to, fill up, you get a sticker for every book you read and turn back in. And there was like this poster, and it had balloons on it. I want to say it had like 30 balloons on it. And, each time you read a book, and the thing was to fill up all 30 balloons over the summer. I filled in 132 balloons to be exact. I mean, I would just go through a book a day. And they were all history books. I mean, American Revolution, World War II, Civil War, modern European history, Napoleon, all that stuff. I was just really, really into. And I was also really into kind of current affairs and politics. I mean, like I said earlier, all my friends were worried about, going to the junior high dance and, looking good for girls and whatnot. And here I was saying, hey, I'm going to miss Crossfire. That's not cool. You guys can go have fun. I'm staying here. Good guests on tonight. But and that's, when I was a senior in Hilmar High, I volunteered for the local Republican Party. When being a Republican was normal back then, but and was super sad when George Bush Sr. lost and Bill Clinton won. I just thought that was the end of my world. I thought, oh no, Bill Clinton, he's just like super duper liberal, super liberal. And now I look back on him like, the guy was actually a great president. And that kind of drive and desire to always be in a law, political, governmental type field has always been there for me. It's just something that and sports were the two things I was absolutely obsessed with my entire childhood. And I guess you can say still my adulthood. I'm still obsessed with politics and sports. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, definitely, but both too. And I mean, it's great, right? Now all that time that you spend, it's like, well, now you use all that knowledge and you have all these things going on. So it's really awesome. Well, speaking of that, I want to get into how you started CrossCurrents LLC and all the work that you do there. Can you tell us more about that?
So I, when I was in law school, I started working for a state assembly member, started interning for him. He was at the time the vice chair, the assistant Republican leader in the state assembly. I'm very fortunate that I lucked out to be working in his office. He was a great mentor. Really got to kind of rise up through the ranks, and he saw how hard I was working and, rewarded me for the hard work. And so I then transitioned over to working for then State Senator Dick Monteith, who was a state senator in the Merced, Stanislaus area for a very long time. And he ran for Congress in 2002. And I was his political director, basically manned the ground game in both Stanislaus and Merced counties for both his race and also an assembly race that was basically nestled in with ours, covered the same area. So that was a really fun experience, especially since it was 2002 run for Congress. And that was the time when all the Gary Condit stuff was happening with Chandra Levy. So, here you have just national news all over the place. And I remember we had a candidate forum at the Branding Iron restaurant in Merced. And I was there with the senator, and Gary Condit was on, not like I'm here, the senator is to my right. There's someone in between him and Gary Condit. Well, Gary Condit reaches over to shake his hand, and all of a sudden you just see a flash, just a flash. And, I thought nothing more of it. Well, apparently it was a photo that showed up in a bunch of front pages around the world the next day, because I had relatives in Canada, and I get this phone call, it's like 5:00 here. They're like, "We just saw the paper. Did he tell you where he hid the body?" I'm like, "What are you guys talking about? You were in the same photo with Gary Condit." I'm like, "Oh, no. He just was shaking my boss's hand. No. But that was, it was a race that drew a lot of national attention, and I loved it. I'm kind of thinking to myself, this is what I want to do. I was thriving off the attention. I was thriving off of being on TV, being interviewed on ABC News, on NBC News, and having it, go network. So from there, I actually ran for county supervisor in Merced County in Hilmar, and I got spanked big time. I lost by 30 percentage points. I mean, it was brutal. Also, the best thing that ever happened to me, because up until then, I was just this cocky little punk. I mean, everything's going right for me. The world is my oyster. Anything I do, it turns to gold. Graduated UOP, graduated law school, ran this congressional campaign, or helped run this congressional campaign. Our consultant actually is a guy named Joe Justin, the camel, who I've learned a ton from in this business, and will to this day be just someone whose abilities I can't even match, come close to it. But I was on a roll. And here I just thought I literally had my entire future planned out. Supervisor, state senator, lieutenant governor, governor. I mean, it was, there was no stopping me. Well, there was apparently some stopping me. And, like I said, it was a very humbling experience to know that many people woke up in the morning and went to go vote against you. I mean, that's kind of how you take it when you're running for office. It's like these people hate me enough to vote for the other person. And I was 28 at the time, so it's not like maybe they just like the other person a little more. It's like they hate me. But it's, it brought me down to earth. And it also kind of made me realize being the name on the ballot is not what I want to do. I want to be the guy behind the guy. Or woman, the guy behind the woman, either one. I'm good. But yeah, that's how it got started. And, started running local races, couple city council races, school boards, things like that. And the more you win, the more of a reputation you get. And I have to say my reputation, at least, was kind of made and it sounds very cocky and arrogant, but I'm not trying to be. But 2014 was a very good year for me. I got the sheriff of Merced County elected. There were 3 people running, and the guy who I was running was seen as number 3 out of 3. He was like an afterthought. No one gave him much of a chance. Well, lo and behold, he, came in first in the primary, and then we went to the general election and beat the retired police chief of Merced, who was seen as the 800-pound gorilla. I mean, there was going to be no beating him. We beat him by like 15 percentage points. It wasn't even close. And then we had a congressional race. Me and my consulting partner at the time had a congressional race for Congress down there. A guy named Johnny Teixeira, who was a Republican, running against Jim Costa. Now, Congressman Costa, who now to this day I have a lot of affection and affinity for. He truly is. I mean, he's just a very moderate, plain spoken congressman. Does his job, represents his district very well, does a good job both in district and in DC. But at the time, we're partisans, and we have our guy and we want to win. So and it's 2014, which was a bad year for Democrats. It just was not a good year for Democrats. So we're just beating them up left and right. We're being outspent 10-1. So basically, for every dollar we had, Congressman Costa's campaign had 10. And I mean, I'm literally just like finding needles in haystacks, saying, when a lot of times and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but a lot of times when people like myself make TV buys, it's just, I'm going to put 20,000 on cable in Sacramento, and just you guys figure out, just put on the highest rated channels. That's pretty much it. It's like, let's throw a bunch of mud up against the wall. That's where I'm literally going through every channel, every TV show. I'm like, people love a Shark Tank. Yeah, we're doing that. We're doing this and this. And we actually, at the end of election night, we were ahead by 1,500 votes. We ended up losing by, I want to say 200-300 votes. Let's put it this way. There was a very Democratic part of the district in Fresno. And on election night, we literally got a bunch of texts saying, congratulations, there's only 7,500 votes left in Fresno. There's no way he can make up the difference. 2 days later, surprise, there's actually 11,500 votes in Fresno. I'm like, okay, either someone can't count or I just won't go there. But I mean, we literally came within a whisper of beating this. I mean, the guy has a freeway named after him from Fresno, for crying out loud. You literally drive on the Congressman Jim Costa freeway. And, sometimes it's being good at what you do. Sometimes it's just dumb luck, because I want to say we had $7,000 left in the campaign account. And we're like, okay, we're going to put our money all in, chips all in. World Series, Game 6, Giants are going to clinch. Giants got blown out by the Royals. Like, the Royals were up, I want to say 8-0 in the second inning. I'm just like, gosh, everyone's going to tune out now. Our TV, no one's going to see our TV spot. We get a phone call from Network. I want to say was it ABC 30 at the time? Yeah, I forget which one. But they're like, no, it was KMPH Fox. It was Fox. And they're like, hey, guys, I got some bad news. I'm like, what is it? There was some mess up yesterday and your spot didn't run. So we're going to play it on Game 7 tonight. And there's going to be no charge, no extra charge because it was our screw up. And this was the game where Madison Bumgarner comes out and pitches like 5 innings in a relief. And the Giants win like 1-0. And not only did our ad air on Game 7, it aired in the 9th inning when literally all of America was tuning in. And I still remember our candidate was at this event in Merced, and everyone was packed. They were watching the game, and Congressman Costa was there too. And our spot comes on in the 9th inning, and Costa goes, "What the hell are you doing on TV?" And I'm just like, God, there is a God. There's a God. But that year, we lost. But I mean, the Wall Street Journal covered our race. National Review covered our race because it captivated a lot of people's attention and interest, because it's like, here are these two guys, me and my partner, who, literally took this nobody and he almost beat like an icon in Congress, a guy who everyone knows and everyone knows is going back every year. So it's kind of taken off from there. And, I've had a lot of fun doing it. It also takes a toll. My job does take a toll, especially on even numbered years. I don't just take any candidates. I take candidates I believe in. And so when you get kind of emotionally attached, I mean, it really does drain you, especially when your candidate loses. I'm lucky enough to be able to say my candidates win roughly 80% of the time. That's a win record I'm proud of. But, when they lose, it's like a sucker punch. And I just, even with all my other wins, that loss is the one that I just ruminate on. And I'm just like, and I play in the back of my head, what could I have done differently? What can I have done differently? Sometimes, the chips just fall where they do. And I could have done everything perfect and the outcome still would have been the same. So that's, kind of leads me to today, still doing the political thing. Probably my most satisfying win was 2 years ago with Assembly Member Carlos Villapudua, who is currently my boss as I am his chief of staff. But great candidate, hardworking candidate, great legislator, very common sense, blue collar, and we were going up against this sitting supervisor who not only had all the money, had all the endorsements, but her and I just personally did not like each other. I mean, it was a personal blood feud. I mean, when she first ran for supervisor, I did this thing called an IE, which is independent expenditure, which basically is a group of people who spend money on a race, but they're not giving it directly to a candidate. They're doing it on their own. So I was hired to do that against her and beat her up pretty good. That's the nature of the game. You're going to get beat up. And she pretty much went to my landlord after and said I was super dirty and I needed to be kicked out of the home I was renting. Luckily, my landlord was like, well, he pays his rent on time, so that's not going to happen. But so it was a blood feud, and we ended up winning that race, with the help of some IEs, coincidentally. But also, we ran a really, really good race. He worked his tail off. I mean, I would not be surprised if that guy walked 20,000 homes himself in the district throughout the campaign. And it was during a pandemic year. So, he's out there walking with his mask on, leaving literature and whatnot. And people appreciated the fact that he wasn't hiding behind a screen or anything like that. He was actually out there, walking and working. And another thing he did a lot of during the campaign is he would just like take an entire day off where he could have been walking or could have been, making phone calls for campaign contributions. But he would donate his time at a food bank, loading up groceries in cars for people who were coming by that, needed groceries because their job was gone because of the pandemic. And he did that a lot. And I'll admit at the time, he did it more than my liking. I'm like, hey, boss, come on, you got to raise money. I got to get paid. But he'd be at the food bank, working his tail off. And that really resonated with voters. People really appreciate the fact that here's a guy who just loves his community. And he could be out doing political things, but he's here spending his time with the community and giving back. So, we beat Kathy Miller. And as I said, after the election was final, because I want to say it went about a week and a half extra because took such a long time counting ballots. A lot of it because of COVID restrictions and whatnot. But afterwards, I'm like, I can retire now and just retire a happy man. I have reached the pinnacle of my political consulting success. I have defeated Kathy Miller, but still doing it for the time being, and having fun when I'm not getting stressed out, and wishing total destruction upon my opponents. But it's let's just say when June 8th, the day after the primary comes, I will sleep in and have a good time.
Yeah, but plenty of days like that, and luckily it's almost here. But
yes,
I'm glad he did that. I think a lot of political candidates just don't realize how doing small things like that, right? Like you said, go door to door, like that means a lot, right? Because you don't always see that, and if they take some time out of their whole campaign to do that, it's going to make a big difference versus, here's someone else who's just talking on my behalf, right? Yeah. So it's the simple things that people can do.
People like the fact that you're making the effort. They really do. So I implore all my candidates, even if they got, tons of money. I have a DA candidate right now who's almost probably raised 3 times as much as his opponent. But I'm still being like, are you out there walking? Go walk. Go, instead of trying to write a Facebook post, which is what you pay us for, go walk. There you go. There's a precinct. Go knock yourself out. So it's something I still stress a lot to my candidates.
Plus, I think it helps them get a lot of insights, right, on like what are people most worried about, answering questions they might have. And people feel more special, right? I mean, it's like they're talking to you. My vote really matters to them.
Oh yeah, and on that, you're right. It is, what do actual real people think? Not what a poll tells me. What do real people think? A lot of times, what real people think coincide with the poll. But it's good to have that, knowledge base that you're out there talking to real people, and they're worried about their gas prices. They're worried about if they can afford a home. They're worried about the fact that there's no baby formula in the shelves. They're worried about all these things. Pardon me, it's 9 o'clock. I have to take my medication.
Okay, that's okay.
So, and this will be a little detour, and it could go in the podcast, but just over 2 months ago, I had a liver transplant out here in lovely Gainesville, Florida, at the University of Florida Medical Center, which best in the nation, but I'm biased. But I have to take time medication every day, 9 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 9 o'clock, like clockwork. And as I like to, it's anti-rejection drugs and whatnot. As I like to say, I have more drugs than most drug cartel leaders. So, but they're not for sale. But but yeah, it was definitely a life-changing experience, I think, having to go through that, kind of focuses you on what's really important. You know, before that, before the whole ordeal of having to go through a liver transplant, I was very much, all work all the time. I need to win. I need to be best in my business, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I won two Poly Awards, which are basically the Oscars for political consultants. And I've won two of them. Third, if you count a regional Poly, I won. And I was like, "Oh, look at me! I won a Poly. You didn't, neener, neener." And you go through that, you're just like, big whoop, big whoop. And they had the Poly Awards this year, and they're like, "Lee, you gonna enter?" And I'm like, "No, I got better things to do with my time." Like, I don't know, getting better from having a liver transplant. But it just gives you a new outlook on what's important and what's not. I'm actually glad I went through it. And it's actually one of the drivers of why I wanted to start, a USL women's team in Stockton. It was while I was going through that process, waiting for a liver and dealing with all the with the repercussions of that, and what my body was going through, what I was going through, it, wanting to give something back, not being selfish and having it all be for Lee, but wanting to give something back. And I saw the USL was starting a women's league, and I thought to myself, "Hey, Stockton's perfect. It's a hotbed for soccer. The Central Valley is a hotbed for soccer." I mean, the ESPN has this 30 for 30 called the U, which is talks about the University of Miami football back in the heydays of the 80s when they were like a dynasty. And the coach who started that, a guy named Howard Schnellenberger, took a map of Florida, drew a line right through the middle of it at Orlando. And he said, "If we recruit every player south of here, we will be national champions and no one will touch us." And it's true. It happened. Same thing with soccer in the Central Valley. If you just draw a line around the Central Valley and say, "We're going to keep every player from the Central Valley here," I mean, you would have college soccer teams, UOP, Fresno State, that, would be winning national championships every year. You would have, pro soccer teams, be it from, USL Stockton that starts off next year to the Central Valley Fuego down in Fresno right now to the Sacramento Republic, that would be dominant because there's just that much talent. And I'm thinking to myself, there's so much talent in Stockton, but it's untapped, and there's nowhere for it to go. Youth soccer these days, to be able to be seen by the big colleges or whatnot, oftentimes it's pay for play. I mean, you have to pay for tryouts. You got to pay to be on a traveling team. You got to, pay this, pay that, pay that. You got so many talented kids in Stockton that can't afford it. I mean, their families worry about putting food on the table. They're not going to pay, X amount for you to go try out for a soccer team. It's just not going to happen. Go play for your high school team, and when you're done, that's it. And so I started, it kind of popped into my head as it's a valuable asset for Stockton, especially during the summer, which is when they play. And, the only other competition in town is the Stockton Ports, and they serve two very different customer bases and customer groups. And it's a way to give back to Stockton, and my vision, we already have our general manager and our head coach, and they agree with me, but the vision is to make it like an all Stockton, San Joaquin County area team. I mean, we're not going to go out and say, "Oh, it's so-and-so from wherever, come play for us because you're good." We have enough talent in this area to not only compete, but to win championships in the USL. And that's what we're looking forward to doing.
Which is really awesome. I'm glad that you guys have that vision of like, let's just keep it local. Let's not look outside and give more opportunities to anyone in the area who wants to play. And like you said, right, maybe you can't afford the pay-to-play system, or you don't get scouted by a college, not because you're not good, but because they can only scout so many players too.
I was bringing it back. So when I was going to undergrad at UOP, back when their athletic department knew what they were doing, unlike now, but that's just my commentary. We had this guy who ended up going number one in the NBA draft, Michael Olowokandi. No one scouted him. He picked UOP by opening up a phone book and dialing the first number he saw. I kid you not. I kid you not. He was from London, England. His parents were Nigerian. And he opens up a college, U.S. News and World Reports, top universities, boom. And the coach at the time, Bob Thomason, always had one assistant stay in the office at lunch, and he would joke just in case some 7-footer falls out of the sky. 7-footer fell out of the sky. He led us to the NCAA tournament, led us to the National Invitational tournament the year after, number one NBA draft pick. And that's, that's kind of the story we want to tell with SC Stockton. We want that center forward, we want that, female Messi to kind of fall out of the sky, but be from Stockton. And really just, kind of shine and grow and show that Stockton has a ton of talent and that we're going to, put Stockton on the map when it comes to soccer talent for females.
So with the USLW, being a new league, and I don't know if you could talk about this, but I've always kind of wondered when new teams come about, but what are the requirements usually that they ask for, and like what's the entry fee and all that?
So the entry fee, it depends on if you're coming in with two or one teams, because a lot of teams come in with the USL W team and a USL either League One or League Two team. But I don't think I'm allowed to say the actual fees. Okay. They are reasonable. They are in the 5-figure range. But let's just say mid 5-figure range, the lower end of the mid 5-figure range, if we could put it at that. As far as requirements, they, obviously you have to go through a business plan and kind of, this is what we're looking at doing. This is, kind of our projected balance sheet, costs and revenue. And they want to make sure you have a suitable place to play. We're fortunate enough that, we'll be able to play at San Joaquin Delta College's soccer specific stadium. And seats at least 1,000. That's one of the requirements. They want to be able to see. They want you to see at least 1,000. We're looking at making sure to get lights there. That's one thing we're looking at adding for that stadium, because right now it doesn't have lights. And especially during those summer months, we don't want our games to start at 7 a.m. But it's, we think it's really going to be a great addition to the Stockton scene. Our motto is our city, our team. And that's kind of how we want to treat it. Stockton is our city, city that, I became a young adult in, city that's given so much back to me. And this team is Stockton's team. I mean, it's going to belong to the city of Stockton. It's not like, a fly-by-night operation. It's not going to be a minor league affiliate for some, big major, team. And give you an example, it looks like the Stockton Heat, the AHL hockey team, are going to move back up to Calgary, which is unfortunate because you got a lot of passionate hockey fans in Stockton that aren't going to have hockey anymore. And they've really supported that team. And to have that team yanked out from them just because the city and the NHL club can't reach an agreement is sad. I will say they're more than welcome to come over and be soccer fans. But I want to make sure that never happens with Stockton's USLW team. I mean, it's a team that, should I one day say, hey, I want to sell it to someone or whatnot, it's this team stays here in Stockton because it's, I built it from the ground up to be from Stockton for Stockton. And that's the legacy I want to leave behind for it.
Yeah, and that's a great area where you guys are gonna be playing at with Delta College. I know the mall being across the street, they're remodeling it. It seems like there's a lot of work being done around there, so it's gonna be a really great spot to be at.
It'll be a happening place.
Well, that's all great and all, and I really can't wait till the logo gets announced. Yeah, I think you said it was sometime possibly right in the next month or two that we might be getting.
We're looking at July. Cross our fingers.
And when would you guys be starting officially? Like, is there like an approximate month or?
Yeah, so obviously we want to have a couple friendlies before we actually kick off. Mm-hmm. So kickoff's going to be like the start of May 2023. We'll probably have a couple friendlies in April. And I would like to get names that are going to draw people in, because once again, it's one of those things where I want to be able to showcase Stockton and really showcase the team. So as far as live games, we're looking at April 2023. Obviously, the closer we get, there'll be open tryouts and training camp. But as I like to tell my general manager and head coach, that's you guys right there. I'm not going to be Jerry Jones. I'm not going to be trying to tell who you need to play or pick the players. That is you guys. I'm just going to be the guy with, a bottle of water and a hot dog in the stands. And if y'all need something, just tell me and I'll get it.
That's awesome. So they're probably going to do like a combination of local tryouts and college recruiting from all the colleges in the area, do you think?
So our GM is pretty well connected. So it is going to be a combo of open tryouts and people she's already targeted. She's already targeted a few players who have agreed and said, yes, we want to play for Stockton, that are going to be fantastic. And their names will be pretty familiar to local soccer fans and local people in Stockton in general. So we're going to start off with a really good base. And like I said, we're going to have those open tryouts. And, we know there will be more than a few diamonds in the rough there that we find. Along with people who are recruited by the head coach and the general manager. And, like I said, I'm looking at putting a competitive playoff caliber team on the field from day one. That is my goal. There's no, I told my general manager and our head coach, my mouth's going to be writing checks. You guys better be able to cash. and one of them is the fact that I'm letting everyone know. Be it the rest of the league or whatnot, we're coming to play from day one, and we're looking to make playoffs from day one. So just bring, as The Rock says, just bring it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really great mentality, and anything is possible, right? Sac Republic were champions in their very first season, right? When everyone was still trying to find out about them, and so we definitely have a lot of talent around this area. So we can make that happen again.
Absolutely.
Well, one last thing I want to ask you, and as I was going through your LinkedIn, one thing that popped my eye, because I hadn't asked you about this before, and that is that you have a 11v11 grassroots coaching license from the U.S. Soccer Federation.
Yes.
Tell me more about how'd you get that, and what are your plans with that?
So it's, long story short, beginning of January, I had to come out here. I'm in Gainesville, Florida right now. But I had to come out for testing at the University of Florida for them to be able to say, okay, we're going to put you on our list for you to get a liver. And so basically it was either me being in my hotel room or me running through all their tests. So in my hotel room, and it's that first week after the new year where there's really nothing on other than reruns. There's no college football is waiting for the national championship game. NFL's not until the weekend. Basketball's like, we're still taking a little break. So I'm like, why not? So I, see that there's the USSF has a course to get your grassroots coaching license. And as I like to say, I am now eligible and certificated to coach my twin 4-year-old nephews in Pee-wee soccer, the kind where it's just a mass of humanity running around with the ball somewhere in there. And they're super excited for the Capri Suns and the orange slices after the game. That's the most exciting part of the game for them right there. So, yes, I am, according to the U.S. Soccer Federation, I am qualified to coach your son or daughter's under-8 Pee-wee soccer team. And I love it. But yeah, there's no plans for me to get into coaching. I'm going to leave that to the professionals. That is just something I thought I would do for fun. And, like I said, if, I actually did give my twin nephews a pair of mini soccer goals and a couple little mini soccer balls for Christmas. So, I'm trying to plant the seed into them. Their dad wants them to play football. I'm like, guys, this is the actual real football right here. And you won't have to worry about a concussion or getting slammed by a 250-pound linebacker.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's a kick that it's up there. I think that it's a kick that people are like, oh, Mr. Political guy, you can coach little kids in soccer. They're like, you actually like small children? You don't eat them for dinner? I'm like, no, only on even-numbered years do I eat small children for dinner. Odd-numbered years, I'm generally a nice and easygoing guy.
Well, that's where the future Messis get started at, right? Usually,
it is.
You start, so you.
It is. It's me rolling the ball out and saying, y'all have some fun. I'm just going to lay down here and get a tank. That's basically my coaching philosophy right there.
And then just years later, maybe one of those players making it pro or at least college or something, and then you'll be a part of that story.
One of those players will win the World Cup, score the winning penalty kick, and afterwards say, I owe it all to my under-8 coach Lee Neves.
He brought the Capri Suns on time.
He did. He brought, and the orange slices were the best.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? But those stories happen, right? I mean, with any player that is champion, they always got their start somewhere.
And it's look, I really want to see soccer thrive in the Central Valley. I know it's a valley that's dominated by football. The American variety, which, hey, don't get me wrong, I love my 49ers. I'll be going to my fair share of Florida Gator football games, even if I have to fly back. But, I think soccer is something that can really, with the right kind of, leadership, really flourish in the Valley. I mean, you have it's unfortunate, my alma mater, UOP, has a great men's soccer program, and it doesn't get marketed. I mean, you have an athletic department there that, is obviously they market the hell out of men's basketball. It's the number one revenue generator. But, you got some people in that department who are still stuck on, we were good in women's volleyball, 30 years ago. And here you have this gem of a program that people come out to watch. I mean, they lead the West Coast Conference in attendance year in, year out, and no marketing whatsoever. I don't see anything. And the leadership there, it's unfortunate. The past president, who, if you were going through my website, you saw I had more than a couple of interviews about being happy that she was told to go elsewhere. But they brought in a guy named Pat Hayden, who used to be the athletic director at USC, to kind of do an evaluation of the athletic program. And he apparently was not telling her what she wanted to hear. And as it was told to me, she told him, but we're really good in water polo. And he's like, yeah, nobody cares about water polo. But that is just, I mean, if anything, it's a prime example of the fact that, unfortunately, you do have schools, UOP being one of them, that have these gems in these soccer programs, and instead they're kind of like, let's go look at the white sports. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to call it like I see it. I mean, come on, water polo is like the whitest sport out there. That and lacrosse. I mean, come on. No offense to lacrosse players, you guys beat each other with sticks, so I'm not, please be nice to me. But it's, trust me, we could do 3 podcasts on my feelings about UOP, but I am not at all surprised that they like to not focus on the, Latino sport. Let's put it that way.
But I do think, I mean, the sport is growing a lot. And
it is. It's grown a lot.
Stadiums, right, that are, being developed. Sacramento Republic having their own stadium in downtown. There's some rumors going around. Modesto might have a shared Modesto Nuts / potential USL team stadium in downtown. I hope they're true, because this is my hometown and nothing would make me happier than to see that. And yeah. I'm sure with Stockton too, right? If you guys get a lot of people supporting the team in the first couple of years, maybe down the road, there might be a potential to, build a 4,000, 5,000 seater stadium somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'd love to get to that stage. One thing I will caution and say, anything that's done in Stockton, I am versed and familiar enough with Stockton politics and Stockton government to know that I want the government and local government Stockton to have nothing to do with the stadium at all. Stay as far away from as possible. It's like, we have the land, give us the permits, and we're going to build it. You guys stay over there. Because when Stockton city government gets involved, let's just say, woo! I mean, the Stockton Arena is a perfect example. When the Stockton Arena opened up, they had a choice of 2 openers. Well, 3 openers. They could have had Bruce Springsteen. They could have had Vicente Fernandez, who, I mean, the guy sells out the place in like 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Or Neil Diamond. Now, look, I like Neil Diamond as much as the next guy. I really do. I love my yacht rock. I love it. I get chills when Neil Diamond says they're coming to America. But I mean, between Vicente Fernandez and the boss, Bruce Springsteen, you pick Neil Diamond?
Oh.
And that arena was maybe half full, maybe. And this is the opening act. And that right there, part and parcel, is why the city of Stockton should never be involved in anything that can be run better by private enterprise. And I will leave it at that. So city of Stockton, stay away from our stadium, please.
Yeah. Judging off that, I don't even know who they wouldn't even want the team to be the first to have the home opener, right? Maybe.
Probably not. They'd be like, oh, let's have water polo be the home opener. We'll put a pool in there.
Yeah. They'll put one of those inflatable pools, right?
Little kiddie pool. Little kiddie pool.
Well,
what are you going to do?
Well, Lee, I won't take more of your time. I know it's we're 3 more hours over there if you've been in Florida, but it was really awesome talking to you. I'm glad you're doing better after the liver transplant, and that you made a sad situation right into something really good, and it's just kind of driven you forward with all these ideas and all that. And I'm with you. I mean, that's one of those things that I think a lot of people could relate, that when we have those times in our lives, we end up actually being inspired to do more things. So yep. It's a blessing.
I do want to say one last thing. Got the liver transplant and whatnot, but I literally would not physically be here today if not for my wife. She is literally a saint. I mean, she took time off from work to take care of me, look after me, uprooted her whole life and moved out here to Florida with me. She, now goes back and forth to spend time with her son back in California. But, here's someone who could have very easily said, we've been married, 2 years, and could have easily said, I didn't sign up for this. And instead she's like, buck up. I'm not giving up. So you better not give up. And it's, look, especially when I first got told I needed a new liver, it was very trying. It was very trying from being this very independent guy who can do whatever he wanted to do to, not being so independent. But she was there with me every step of the way, and, put up with my attitude, because trust me, there were days where I did not have the best attitude on the planet, and, put up with it with a smile. So if there's one star of this story, it is April Sunshine Neves. And I lucked out, let's put it that way. God was smiling on me and said, this is going to be your wife. Because if it were anyone else who was my wife, we probably would be having this conversation. I would probably be 6 feet under, to be perfectly honest. And so the fact I'm here talking to you today and I'm able to do the soccer stuff and I'm able to still do politics is all because of her. It really is. And I will never be able to repay her enough or say thank you enough, even though she gets sick and tired of me saying thank you every day, all the time. She's like, stop it. But she's really the star of the show, to be perfectly honest. So,
well, that's great. Yeah, things happen for a reason, right? And I know we usually just say that quote, but it really is true.
They do. Things do happen for a reason, believe it or not. So
awesome. Well, Lee, thank you so much for being on here. And like I said, I can't wait for SC Stockton to be around and to go to the home opener whenever that gets scheduled out. I'll definitely be there unless
you get a front row seat.
Happens.
You get a front row seat at the home opener is what you get. You get a front row seat. And when we have our big jersey reveal, you have to bring the podcast on down. We'll do a little podcast segment from the jersey reveal with our general manager and head coach.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have that planned out. Won't be for the 209 journey. It'll be for my other one, since I have my soccer podcast. But any of our listeners here are welcome to jump on the State of the Republic podcast to check that out. But yeah, that we'll definitely talk it through and have a show over there.
Absolutely. Hey, it was a pleasure. Look forward to hearing the podcast.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Once again, thank you so much to Lee for being on the podcast. Really enjoyed the conversations, and he's really done a lot. And I'm really excited for all the things that he's going to be doing in the future as someone who is a big time soccer fan, as some of you may have already realized that from other episodes. I get really excited about this, and not just that, but the fact that we'll have more opportunities for athletes here in the Valley is really great. And definitely a women's soccer team is not something that we've had in the 209 in general when it comes to, I should say, an independent team, not a non-college one. So it's going to be really great to give all the women out there a possibility to be able to play professional soccer in the 209 without having to go to another city. And, we can have all of our local talent get their professional start here with SC Stockton. So I'll have more details on that when the team announcement happens and all that. And we might be having more guests from the team as the team announcements happen. And especially next year when their season kicks off, I'll definitely be having maybe a player or two and another staff member on the show so they could talk a little bit more about what the plans are for SC Stockton in the 2023 season. Well, thank you so much to everyone for listening to the show. Again, if you're not subscribed to the show, I invite you to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening, or it might also read as follow. So that way you're able to be alerted anytime I post a new episode. I am working on getting more guests on the show. And if you do know anyone, as I mentioned earlier, please feel free to send me a message with their contact information, or have them send us a message on the social media at the 209 Journey on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let me know your story, and then we can coordinate times and get you on the show as well. Well, have a great day or night, everyone, whenever you might be listening to this. And you'll hear me next time here on the 209 Journey podcast.